Your background looks a lot nicer than my colorful
Hey,
choices
they're
of
good.
wall colors.
I don't know why you're coming. Hold on. Built-in microphone. Um, hmm. Okay, you're coming up. I can hear me through mine. Hold on. I don't know. And my camera. Hold on. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
I can
Yeah.
hear you. Yeah.
There we go. Now you're all coming through. Okay.
Oh, okay, cool.
So sorry. I just got crammed behind and then anyways, we're
Don't
good.
even apologize. This is like I'm like fangirling out a little bit, just so you know.
Please. Well, I super appreciate you guys having me on. Thank you.
Oh my
No, I
God.
appreciate you for coming on. This is great.
Yeah. So, and you have your own podcast as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we usually do, we just talk to our guests about like what their nutrition is. I mean, obviously, I've been following your Instagram, so I know, key points of what you do, and you do what we do as well. I'm Kelly. Sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Kelly. Obviously, this is Ovi. We are Ovi Physiques. So
OV, right?
Yo,
OVI.
OVI. That is
OVI.
pretty
OVI.
simple.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. So I have a little open, and then we'll just get right into it. So welcome to Eat the Food. Should we call you Brad, Mr. Jensen?
That's great. Well, you can call me whatever you want.
So Kelly has an agenda, but I'll let her go. But I have questions too for you. So I'll let her go because I know she prepared for it, and then we'll go from there.
So my first question is, obviously, how did you get into fitness and nutrition?
Oh man, going back to I was a chubby kid growing up, especially like that awkward, like I don't know, 10 to 13, just like 11 to 14, just brutal years.
For everybody.
Braces, overweight, right? Got picked on in middle school. And I was teased pretty bad. I was mostly teased by my group of friends. And these friends, who at the time I thought they had muscles, it was called rib cages, right? We thought they were abs. They were just like super skinny kids, right? And I remember we'd all have pool parties, and I'd be the one with like the black t-shirt on a 100-degree heat day in July. It was just embarrassed, and they'd always make fun of me, like, oh, oh, we ordered too much pizza, and they're like, oh, Brad's fat, he'll eat it. And I was like, oh, that kind of sucks. And so about that time, well, about 15 years old, I really took an interest into fitness. I remember I was probably 14 or 15. I think I was still 14. And we went into a bookstore, me and my mother. That's back when people still went to bookstores. I still see that shit open. It's crazy. I'm like, there's still Barnes and Nobles open. It's crazy.
I was gonna say, I think there's one like Kelly in Montgomeryville. There's one.
Yeah, I think Devin. One.
I think it's like turned into more like a coffee shop. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just Amazon. I'm shocked people still go in there. But
yeah, because Starbucks is in there.
Oh yeah, see there you go. It's so you come hang out and kind of relax, get a little library feel. But I went in with my mom and she was buying a book, and I went over the magazine section. I picked up a Muscle and Fitness, and a big black jack dude, and I was like, I want to look like that guy, and I just picked up the magazine. I started, I remember I ripped out there was like like an example of a meal plan in there, right? Like a diet. Looking back, I still think it might've been for like bikini girl competitors. Cause I remember my breakfast was like a touch of oatmeal, 4 egg whites, and a half a grapefruit. I remember that. Cause I remember thinking, I don't think this is enough food. But what happened was, I got pretty, I got skinny. And so I lifted weights here and there, but my mom wouldn't buy me a gym membership until she said, hey, when you're 16, I'll get you a membership, but I'm not driving you there and back every day. I mean, looking back, I'm like, well, this is like the worst thing I asked her to do. And later she'd find out with my drug addiction, that was probably like worth doing. But, and I hit a growth spurt during that time. So I actually got too skinny too. And so, then I was teased by my football friends for being too skinny. And I was like, I can't win with these pricks. I'm either too fat, too skinny. But I found the gym when I really, really fell in love with the gym is I got my license my sophomore year of high school, and I joined the gym. And man, I went there 3-4 hours a day, not working out the whole time. I'd hang out in the pro shop. I would talk to all the big dudes about, what are you doing? They're like, this is a drop set. And I was just so enthralled. I was like, what's a drop set? Like, I was just so into it. And I look back, those guys were super nice because I was probably really annoying, and they were really patient and cool, and they taught me a lot, and I fell in love. It was the first thing I've been passionate about in my whole entire life to that point. And when I was about to graduate high school, by this point I'm already getting into drugs and a little bit of dealing, but my parents said, you need to go to school like, where are you going to go to college? And I was thinking, I hate school. Like, I literally hate this with all my I don't want to go to school. And they're like, well, you got to do something. Like, you can't just go on doing nothing. And I was like, well, I'm going to get certified as a personal trainer. So I did. I was taking the, you know, the certification course towards the end of my senior year. And when I got out of high school, I got a job at what was then Bally Total Fitness, which I believe has completely gone under at this point.
Yeah.
But got a job as a personal
kind
trainer.
of like Lucille Roberts. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Dude, Bally was still stuck in like the 80s, even in 2003 when I got the job. It was like fluorescent lighting everywhere. So, I mean, that's where it started. And, you know, my journey from that point. So that was 2003, graduate high school. I got that job as a personal trainer. And they'd always make me stand at the front and caliper pinch people's body fat. And let me tell you, nobody did it on the way in. They always did it on the way out, just like after a spin class, sweaty. And I mean, I was just like, oh, so disgusting. But you know, and then I took a hiatus, but that's really how I got into the industry. And that was, you know, what, 22 years ago now. So
wow. So what
Kind
happened?
of like a similar story, Kel.
What?
Kind of similar story to how I got into fitness.
Yeah. What happened after high school? So you got your personal training certification, and then did you end up in college, or did you just start training people?
no, I just started training people, but then you know, I'd mentioned I was already kind of getting into drugs. And so obviously my Instagram handle is the sober bodybuilder. And I I went through you know, but at that time when I was personal training too, I was already addicted, had a pretty I had a daily habit of Oxycontin at the time. And you know, that I knew it was a problem, but I didn't realize how big of a problem it was until the drugs ran out, right? They start cracking down on like pill mills back then. I mean, they were still a real big thing, but you know, the source I was going down to Mexico from Utah, which is like a 14-hour drive. It's not like it's 4.
Gosh.
And I'd go to the pharmacies and I'd buy a bunch of narcotics and steroids and stuff them in my car and, you know, hide them and in the door panels, come back. And I'd done that 3 times. And by the time I was going to go again, this kid went and he got stuck in a Mexican prison. And so I was like, I'm done. I'm not going down. I'm too pretty for a Mexican prison. I'm not going. And so I was like, you know what? It's time to grow up. I'm just going to stop these things. And I had heard about withdrawals, but I significantly underestimated how vicious they were. Because when I got sick, I for a minute there, I was like, oh, I must have the flu too. It's just like bad timing. And little did I know. I mean, you guys, listeners, I'm familiar with opiate addiction. It's like withdrawals are like the worst flu you've had times 10 with like this borderline panic attack at all times. It's awful. And so I made the decision when I was sick on like day 2, I'd called a friend and he said, hey, you can come over. My brother's got something for you. Well, what the older brother had was heroin. And I remember that's like a line in the sand I drawn. Like, I'm not going to do heroin. That's just too much. Right. Like that's like for like junkies. You know, I'm a pill addict. And like, I was a pretty jacked dude. And, you know, I said no at first. It took me all about 2 minutes and I was like, here, give it to me. So I shot up heroin for the first time and it instantly made me feel better. But the problem was, that's when my life got really bad. So from about that point until I finally got sober 12 years ago now, when I was 28, you know, quickly I lost the job, personal training. And for the next 10 years, it was just, it was in and out of a car. You know, I started getting locked up a lot, which can't really hold stable employment. And I'd get out and I'd get a job back in the fitness industry for a minute, you know, personal training or, you know, doing something. I worked at a supplement store and then I would relapse. And I did this cycle over and over and over, back and forth. For so many years, like for a decade. And by the end was just like had given up on anything doing in the fitness industry and just kind of committed to my life to being a junkie. And so when I finally got sober, I got sober November 20th of 2012. And by January, about middle of January, I was back working at this coaching company who did like we did like, you know, it was like almost like an MLM, but we'd like design these meal plans for clients. And then we also like sold them these supplements that went with it. And I was just like, I just want to be coaching people. And I did that for a little bit and then branched off and started my own company because I was like, okay, this doesn't align with what I'm trying to do to really help people. But that's immediately where I went back to. I started waiting tables first. When I first got sober, I was like, well, I'm a convicted felon. I better start waiting. I better do something for some income. So I started waiting tables. And I did that for like, I think I ended up doing it for 4 or 5 months as I built up a clientele at the place. But I remember after the first month, I was like, no, I want to be back in the fitness industry. And so that's what I did. And here we are.
That's an amazing.
Very cool.
Like, do you ever look back and feel like you should feel a huge accomplishment of how far that you've come?
It's
You know what I
crazy.
mean?
When I've told my whole story on podcasts or at speaking events, I'm to the point now where I've been sober longer than I was in active addiction. And it definitely almost feels like I'm telling it about somebody else. Like it was
Yeah.
such a different person. I mean, first off, I was a kid for a while. I mean, early 20s, no offense to anyone listening, you're still a kid. I'm like, I mean, and on top of that, just, running and gunning and robbing people and doing this stuff, like it's just such, it feels like a different life. But yeah, I'm really grateful. And in the moments where, because my life's pretty cool today. If you would have told me 12 years ago, like, hey, this is what your life's gonna look like in 12 years, I would have been like, I won't complain about a thing, God, just give it to me. And then here you are, right? And you lose perspective of the past. And so if I find myself complaining and moaning and bitching about like, these problems that really, I'm not saying they're not problems, but most of my problems are like luxury problems, meaning I should just be grateful I even have this problem. Like I
Right.
have a couple businesses to run that provide me problems. Cool. Like I would have killed to just be able to be in a place to own a business back in the day, that wasn't drug dealing. So
Right.
yeah, I do. I'm really grateful.
That's awesome. What do you got, Ovi? I mean, I have more questions,
No,
but
I think it's cool that the story is pretty similar, right? Like a minus, well, I didn't get addicted to drugs, but the wheeling and dealing, right there.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just cool to see that, other people that are influential in this industry have a similar background, right? Like I told you when I used to collect cards of Rambo, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Arnold back in Romania, right? Like when I was 5, that's why I wanted to get into fitness.
Yeah.
So, and then getting picked on, right? I wasn't chubby, but I was really small. I was 126 pounds freshman year of college. So, uh,
Oh, which is just either if you're
right,
too small or too fat, you will get picked on.
right. So I was like, I'm changing everything. And I got into college and then bam, the steroids and all this stuff. And then bodybuilding, more steroids, right? So like, then you got jacked, then you got muscles. All of a sudden you get a little more respect with it. So you think that's what it is, but it's not, right?
Oh,
So
100%. I did my first, people talk about like, oh, did you start smoking weed first? And I was like, no, in fact, I was drinking, dabbling, a little drinking, 13, 14, like just a kid when we could sneak in and then try to fill the water back up, right? And it would like not like work in the freezer, like that shit. But the minute those older guys in the gym, they told me, hey, dude, they said, bro, do you drink? And I was like, why? And they're like, I don't care. I'm not your dad. I'm just going to tell you, if you want to get jacked, like bodybuilders are not sitting around pounding, 14 shots on a Friday. And I was like, oh, it won't help me. Like, I'm not going to. I heard the message is like, if you drink, you're going to have no biceps. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. So I
yeah, I want
quit
my
drinking.
biceps.
And really, the first thing I kind of did was in my junior year of high school, I did my first cycle of steroids and I got jacked from it. Like, but it was like that what then led me to painkillers. And so I was so young. I look back, I'm like, dude, you had so much natural testosterone working for you. And I just, but I got jacked and I got popular and I got the hottest girl in school. And so it signaled to me like, oh, that's all you got to do. And, as we mature, now that I'm in, 40, I'm just like, oh, like being jacked is cool, but that is not what earns you respect at this point in life.
right.
Well, it changes, right? Like now, because of all that, now I'm on TRT,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
And I
yeah.
want to
Been
do
on
things a
TRT
lot
my whole life.
differently, right? And I want to do things differently. I have a son, right? So it kind of changes the mentality, right? The muscles are great, the abs are great, but I'm not going to be healthy by keeping the abs all the time and the steroids and all that,
100%.
right? So then you get into nutrition, and I got into nutrition just because of bodybuilding, right? I had a coach. I don't, Fakri Mubrak. Do you know who he is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I reached out to him. He was my coach for, 4 years of bodybuilding. When I turned pro, never turned pro, right? But I went to nationals and that was the goal. But that's how I got into nutrition, right? Because I saw how drastic the plan has to be when you want a certain goal. But it doesn't have to be when you want to be healthy, right?
Yeah.
When you want to be healthy, shed some pounds, put on some muscle, you don't need all those drastic diets and meal plans and protocols and gear and all that, right? You can get to where you want to be, especially in this part of life, by just eating proper, nutritious, whole foods, right? And I see the videos because we do similar stuff, right? Where all these guys are demonizing fruit. I saw you did the whole thing on the apples, right, with the guy with the wax. To demonize fruit and vegetables is just silly.
Oh,
Because it's hard enough to begin with. Now we're telling them they can't eat apples, right?
you know, and I often wonder. I think there's definitely some accounts who I won't name names on here who I believe are not just ignorant. They're just they're pushing a narrative to sell something they have to sell.
I'm
And
sure.
then some people, I'm like, did you just hear this somewhere on Instagram? Now you're regurgitating it because we look at oatmeal, for example. I mean, there was so many countless studies on the health benefits of oatmeal. And I mean, that was a staple when I was bodybuilding and still is for a lot of bodybuilders.
I
And
still eat it
yeah,
every day.
and so what their concern is that the small amount of glyphosate that might be on there. And by the way, if you just want to, like, you can just buy organic oats or whatever, and they're still sprayed with glyphosate, but it's different,
Right.
right? It's like we start getting too far and they miss the forest from the trees. They're trying to tell somebody that oatmeal is going to be bad from. I've not yet seen a compelling enough evidence to prove that compared to the countless studies. I mean, so many studies on the benefits of oatmeal.
Right.
And especially getting that dietary fiber. And it's like, yeah, I mean, dude, we're really missing the forest from the trees when we start villainizing these things. And that's been a crazy push the last couple of years of just, and I mean, the apples. And I'm just thinking,
There's
it's
so many.
crazy.
So many.
Yeah.
And I mean, I could just scroll through, even my kids are 13 and 11, but they'll come downstairs and just tell me, whatever nonsense they saw on TikTok. And I'm like, no, please just ask me before you send that out to any of your friends, because first of all, I don't want to be embarrassed for you. So ask me first before you're like, oh, this, and this is wrong. No. Just ask me first and I'll tell you.
Yes, exactly.
At this point, we're not going to eat anything.
No,
because everything is bad for you. We're not going to eat even water. You can't drink the water because it's contaminated in the freaking river.
I'm drinking a bottle of water, which, I'm drinking the plastics, the microplastics. I'm nice as well be dehydrated.
Right.
It's, and I hope that dies down because it's definitely been a heavy push lately and it's confusing people more than it's helping them. And that's the problem. And so as much as people like us who are in the industry trying to push the narrative back of being like, hold on here, like let's zoom out and use logical common sense here that people who eat more fruits and vegetables are immensely healthier, have a better quality of life. We know this. And so as much as we feel like, okay, because I feel like me and all my friends in the industry are talking about this, I'm like, for how many people are still pushing the narrative that somehow these things are bad for us, we need to keep pushing the good message, And
it makes it harder though for people like us to push the right message, right? Because we have clients. Well, I saw this. This said that I can't have that, or I shouldn't do that, or I shouldn't do that. And then all these restrictive calorie deficits, right? That everybody's at 1,000 calories or 1,100 calories, and they don't know why they can't keep the weight off, or they're not healthier and their hormones are off, right? It's not rocket science, but when you believe 100 million things about don't do this, don't eat that, don't drink that, it makes it a lot harder to push the narrative of the right message because there's more people pushing the wrong message than the right message.
I think if there's anybody that's shirtless in the produce section, that you should just stop listening immediately. That guy is wrong.
Getting the message out about the right foods and the right nutritious foods seems that much harder because there's too many people pushing just products.
That's why.
What people strive, I've always said it's interesting. People always say, like, I can just never lose the weight. And I'm like, bullshit. Everyone can lose weight. What they really mean is I can't maintain my weight loss. That's what we have. We have a maintenance problem, not a weight loss problem. People lose weight all the time. They just don't keep it off.
Right.
And what that tells me is often if the approach is unsustainable, the results won't be sustainable, right? And it tells me that these people haven't really taken it slow and steady and really learned like what their body likes, doesn't like, and like really change their mindset. Because people are driving to the forest for 10 years with shitty habits, behaviors, beliefs, and they think they should be out of that forest in 12 weeks or some shit. And I'm like, give me a year and you'll be well on your way. I think it's a good trade-off. You spent 10 years with bad habits, behaviors, everything, and you've gotten yourself into this place. I'm telling you, give me a year and you'll be on your way out of that forest with a whole new perspective of what it looks like. But people aren't patient enough and they want the quick fix and the quick results. And even all the GLP-1s have definitely thrown a wrinkle into this with people, and my clients are like, oh, my neighbor's dropping like 3 pounds a week. And I'm like, but she's on semi-glutide. And I'm like, cool, well, you're not. And your pound a week is phenomenal. Like, so when anyone
Yeah,
tells you that's, if you lost a pound a week for a year, that's 52 pounds. That's incredible.
that's a
And I
great
think it's
weight loss.
starting to skew what realistic weight loss looks like. And again, what you said is like what we try to do at my company is, sounds like you guys are the same way, is remind people, yeah, the weight loss is part of this, but also like, we want you healthy and happy, and we want you to sustain this weight loss,
Right.
like that's the difference. And so we cutting out all foods is not going to be realistic ever. It's never going to eat. Sure. And that's why some people, I don't know if you noticed in the bodybuilding world. I mean, I used to see back when I was competing, and there was so many people who'd get shredded for a show, and then I'd see them 6 months later and they were unrecognizable with how much weight they put on. And a lot
Hmm.
of this happened with the women. And I think there's a lot of reasons behind that. A,
Right.
more emotionally driven because of hormones. B, their hormones are so much more wrecked during this process.
Right.
And then their coaches are taking them down to 900 calories with 4 hours of cardio a day, like crazy shit. Like, and so their rebound effect from just a physiological standpoint is greater. And then you add in the psychological component, but I had a friend, she did probably 10 shows and she looked good for everyone. And anytime she wasn't in the show prep, she looked awful. And like, I don't mean to be rude, but she did. And it's like, she would only use the shows as a way to like, okay, I got to get back so in the zone, because she goes, man, the minute I get off my meal plan, it's just all free for all. I'm like, why don't you just track macros and like try to have some balance and 80,
Right.
20? She's like, that doesn't work for me.
It does work.
I was like, it doesn't work. You haven't worked it. That's the
Right.
problem.
Right.
I
And
talked,
give it enough time, right? So many times you get clients, right? They jump on board and they're all excited, and then motivation goes away 3 weeks later, right? And they didn't lose a pound or whatever, and they're like, well, I'm getting discouraged because I haven't seen the scale move. Okay, well, are you sleeping better? Do you have more energy, right? All that stuff matters, right? You see the doctor improvements, right? You see the blood work come out better. You are a healthier version. And if you continue down this path, you are going to lose weight. Weight loss is a byproduct of doing the right things consistently.
I
So,
mean, it is hard to get into that mindset, just saying, because
right, but over
I did it
time,
with
but
you
Kelly, over time,
over
right? You're
time.
not changing
Yeah.
the mindset tomorrow or including
No.
everything you have to do tomorrow. If you do it consistently day by day and only focus on one or two things, 365 days later, you did 365 new things if we're
Yeah,
going to put it in that aspect,
I get that.
right?
But as a woman, I'm just saying, like, I want to look good in a dress.
yeah. Hey, I totally get it. And that's why I think good coaching comes into play, is to slow that down. I mean, I've worked with far more women than I have men, which I mean, there's some reasons behind where our company was targeting, but also I don't, it's just like, I don't know, I guess that's who I'm attracting. Maybe it's my feminine side, and so I do get it, that it is, it's where good coaching comes to play, to slow down. And what I've seen is, you mentioned something in about the people, like, I always tell clients, like, you know, they think the real decision, like the main decision, is made when they sign up for coaching, which is a phenomenal decision. They're ready to change their life. But I tell them, and I tell them once the point hits, but it's somewhere down the road. It's, 12 weeks later, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months later, when it's no longer fun, it's no longer new, it's no longer really exciting. The initial weight loss has slowed down. That's where the real decision is made. And that's what I always tell them when they hit that point. I said, I get it. Hey, listen, like, I totally empathy. I totally understand. You're frustrated. Scale hasn't moved in a couple weeks. You feel like, you're not making any progress. And pointing back to those non-scale victories you mentioned, super important, but also telling, like, this is your chance to, like, this is where the real decision is made right now, when you're like, you know what? Even though it's not new, it's not exciting anymore, it's not necessarily fun, and it doesn't feel fun because I'm not dropping the last 3 weeks. I'm
Right.
going to decide to keep going no matter what, because I deserve it. And that's like the real decision. And that's when that's made. And you mentioned something about blood work, and it's interesting. All these zealots on the internet, scaring you to eat even, I mean, one thing to, like, occasionally have, like, a little bit of, fun food, like a little bit of a candy bar, like, heaven forbid, you're going to get fat, I guess.
Right.
They don't understand the energy balance. But two, what their claim is, like, even the healthy foods, like, oh, it's super inflammatory and this and that. And I don't know. I'm sure you guys have seen too. I've seen countless examples proving otherwise on actual blood labs with clients who have had you know, they've eaten fruits and vegetables. One, they've also included some of their favorite foods in moderation, and they've learned their relationship with food. And they've really, really worked on that to the point where they do have some of these things. They do have some cake and they do fit some things in, and they are craving a little like, ice cream at night, and they'll fit it in. And all of their inflammatory markers are low, like their blood sugars immensely improved. Like there has been countless examples proving otherwise, that when, and especially what people don't understand is so much of that is also driven by your habits and your lifestyle. Like, are you strength training? Are you walking? Like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you managing your stress? Like, that alone can improve blood lipids immensely. And so, these dickheads just need to go away, but they're not going to. So we'll keep spreading the good message.
It's funny because I feel like I've said those exact words. So hoping that whoever listens to our podcast maybe believes you more than they believe me, because our whole company is based around a structure, routine, and habits, right? Everything else is a benefit, right? If you can create the habits to know exactly how to lose weight and keep it off over time while enjoying the food you love, that is the true power, right?
Maybe they'll
What
listen to this podcast and they'll listen to Brad. It's like when I tell my kids, like, oh, maybe you should, pass the puck up when you see somebody, and they're like, no, no, no. But if the coach tells them, then
right?
that's the way. And I don't know anything, but
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, it always, I have that same experience on my podcast. I'm like, thank you for saying that. So if you guys never believed me, believe him or her, right?
What would be your best advice to give to somebody that's just starting out, that comes to you and says, I'm just starting out. I've been overweight my whole life. I don't know how to even get started. What would be your first point of attack to say to that person?
I think from a mindset perspective is that, um, I mean, I always talk about this double A's and double P's. The double A's, acceptance, first accepting, like, okay, you're in this spot. Like, you put yourself in the spot. Like, that's okay, because you can also be the solution. You were the problem, but you can be the solution. And then followed by action, right? And then patience plus persistence. Like, just be, this is, you know, it is a patient game for this. And if you want to do this right, it's not as fast as everyone wants it to be. And so, if you temper your expectations right off the bat, that this might not happen as quick as I want it to be, it might not be as easy as I want it to be, like, you're going to be a lot happier camper. And that's the acceptance portion of that. From just a standpoint of tactical, man, I just think it's so hard to narrow it down to one, but and it's becoming more mainstream, which I love. People are talking about it more and more. And I mean, but is get something to track your movement and track your steps at a minimum. Start walking. Like, just
Yeah.
start walking. The benefits of walking is just, I mean, I know it's become more mainstream, because even my 77-year-old father is like, "Oh yeah, look, I got 8,000 steps." I'm like, "You're tracking your steps, Daddy?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah." I think that, and just for the record, that's not necessarily a replacement for cardiovascular, but or strength training. But just walking is something that, if you have the ability to use your legs, everybody can do,
Yeah.
and can pay such huge health dividends, not only aesthetically, but for sure internally, by just upping your steps. And like, if you're somebody who's walking like 3,000 steps a day right now, like, shoot for 5, and then go to 6, and then go
More
to 7,
steps.
and then go to 8. Yeah. Then go to 9. And ideally, probably not over like a 1,000 steps a year, but, like, within the first few, if you're already at 3,000, going to 10,000 overnight is going to seem a little daunting. So, like, tier that up over the course of, 2 to 4 months, and get to that place. But just walk and be more cognizant of your movement, and get a walking pad. They're like $125 if you don't want to go outside. I see people a lot of well, it's wintertime and it's cold. I'm like, there's so many options now for people to walk, or just bundle your ass up and get out there. Like,
People complain. People complain about that it's cold, but then they'll sit in a ice bath for 3 minutes.
on the patience part, I'll say this. It's good news, bad news. First off, you can learn to be patient in this. I have seen this translate into other areas. I'm shockingly patient with my 4-year-old son, and I didn't think I would be. And I've had to learn so much patience with business and with fitness for years now. Like, there's no such thing as overnight success. And I believe that shit, when you can pull on leverage points and understand that you being patient in this journey helps you translate into being patient in your life too. Like, there's definitely a crossover. And I said, good news, bad news. If you, and a lot of my lady clients have found this out the hard way. They're like, this is just so slow. I can't wait to get in my muscle gain and I want to build some muscle. And then we get there. And if you think fat loss is slow, just wait till you intentionally try to put on muscle
Right.
outside newbie
Right.
gain. That shit is painfully slow.
Takes
Like
forever.
you
Takes
see guys that
forever.
are jacked in the gym or ladies that are, there's a good chance. I mean, there's some genetic freaks, but there's a good chance they've been training for a decade or longer, most of them, right? And so I was telling, they're like, man, this building muscles are even slower than fat loss. I'm like, it is, and it's not as instant gratification. I mean, getting those PRs is pretty sweet, but so just buckle in for the ride. You got your whole life. You got one life to live. You got one. This is the life. I mean, you might come back as like a bird or some shit. I don't know, but this is the body you got to live in for this life. And so why not make the most out of it? And there's no first place prize for someone at the end of the finish line. Like, good job. Like you won the prize. There isn't challenges, but like in life, like just do the next right thing and be okay with this being a slow and steady, because slow and steady wins the race. My clients that have lost a bunch of weight and got in great shape, built muscle, whatever, and maintained it years and years later, because I'm still in contact with them, it was slow and steady and consistent. It wasn't fast. It wasn't aggressive. There was times maybe I had to be a little more aggressive, but it was a slow and steady process over a long duration of time, and it built into a lot of success. So,
and it's harder to put back on when you have those
exactly.
habits, right? It's harder to go back, and we deal with a lot of women in menopause. I went and I got certified, so I'm menopause certified. I know more about menopause than most women, okay? But think about this. Don't make a face, because most women know nothing, okay? They just know about how they feel. They don't know how to
All right,
adjust or how to make
tell
adjustments.
me what you want to say.
You live in menopause longer than you do before menopause. That's what I was going to say. So women now, if you hit menopause at 40 and you live to 90, you're 50 years post-menopause, right? So why not take the time to understand how to see results in this time of your life? Because it's going to benefit you greatly the older we get. We're living longer in a time of our life that we don't really understand a lot about than we did prior to. So I think it's very important to understand that. A lot of
Not we.
No, we, because we have wives, we have husbands, right? So it is we. We have girlfriends, we have moms, we have grandparents, right? It is we, because the guy in your life has to deal with you in this transition. And the more they know how to be effective and help you along with it, I think the better off you'll be, because both of you are living longer in that part of your life.
You know, that's a lot of my male clients. I've been able to teach them about their wife or partner or girlfriend's menstrual cycle, and they had no clue. It's really good the guys like us understand menopause, and we understand just how a cycle works, because I can't deploy. It doesn't mean I'm always good at it, but I can be like, oh, luteal phase. Okay, don't take this personal. Don't take it personal. But I had to explain to my fiance. I was like, okay, so do you know how your cycle works? She was like, no. I was bleed. I'm like, okay. So it's broken down to these phases. And when I explained it to her, she was like, I've never had that taught to me. And so even though we can't deploy empathy, which I can only imagine, that would probably be really hard to like one day just wait.
She believes you, but she didn't.
Like, and you're like, I loved him yesterday. Like, that's not easy. Like, and then the phases you have to go. I think women you guys are the champs, by the way. Like, seriously, you have to birth babies. You have to go through that whole process. Then the postpartum, you got to go through all that. And then you have to have a cycle every month. And then, oh, by the way, here's menopause. And then you got to go through menopause. We just kind of stay the same. But it is good that you know, Obi, about this. It's good to teach women about this. They don't know. No one's teaching people about their menstrual cycle when we're young, or, hey, as you start to get older, like come to this class on menopause. Like women just start going through menopause and wondering what the hell is happening to me. And a lot of times they go to a doctor that doesn't exactly help them either. So I think it's great that you guys are on the front lines of that, because menopausal women are not an easy case to help lose weight, but they absolutely can achieve their fitness.
Oh, absolutely. I also think it's funny that Kelly made a face when I said it, but when you said the exact same thing, it was great. All good.
I have to see you every day.
Noted. No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm hoping that all the women that we deal with every day can take that message from Brad. It's okay if they believe him over me, as long as they believe it.
Yeah,
that's really all I want.
Well, I did say they were the champ, so that got me some points,
I mean,
you got bonus points with that. I didn't
hear that I was the champ from you.
I apologize. I will bring that up next podcast.
Okay, maybe tomorrow when I see you, you could just tell me that I'm the champ.
I will tell you tomorrow. You're such a champ.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So you just call it the champ. Say the champ is here. Every time she
Yeah,
comes on,
yeah,
call.
man,
Yeah.
I'm all fresh. I'm
Yeah,
walking
you are
in.
now John Cena, the female version.
Where can people find you, Brad?
Yeah, on Instagram is where I hang out the most. It's at the Sober Bodybuilder, and then my podcast is the Next Level Health and Fitness Podcast on all platforms. But yeah, give me a follow on Instagram and holler at me. And I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Yeah, this was fantastic. Oh, I have one more question. Do you get together with James Coppola often? Like I follow him as well when he does like the Tammy stuff that absolutely cracks me up a lot.
No,
But
I just met him like 3 months ago. I met him in
really?
person. So no, like we just I had heard of him, and a friend had he was having some problems with his main account. I had got my account taken down on it wasn't justified, and I had to like fight for it back. That was probably a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
So I had heard of him. We had never like followed each other, and he linked us up, and we became good buddies. And now we chop it up on the phone and we talk, and he's a good dude. And so no, but next time I'm out in New York, which is gonna be like 3 months, we are gonna get together. So
Oh, I love that.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
coming. I really appreciate that. This was
thank you. This
awesome.
was fun. One of my more fun ones I've done in recent
I
times. So
will
thank you.
say, just sending out I was like, I'm just gonna DM. I'm just gonna see what happens. And then when you sent the voice message, I was like, oh shit. Oh my God.
Yeah, I saw it and I was like, oh, I'll do that. That's great. Anytime I see one, like I'm on my phone, I was on Instagram, and I don't know if I saw your message right then, but I saw it that soon after, and I was like, oh, I always know it's a God thing. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this. So I'll link you guys up with James.
I appreciate
Thank you
it.
guys. Sounds good. Let me know when this is out, and I'm happy to share it.
All right.
Oh,
Thanks so
thank
much.
you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.
Thank
Bye.
you.